There were still ice cubes in her glass when the silence hit. Not the usual silence, not the kind you get after an argument, or the kind that grows in long marriages like mold. This one was sharper, clean, final. She'd said what she came to say, slid the apartment key across the kitchen table and waited. Not for permission, for drama, for the breakdown. She didn't get it. I nodded, picked up the key, pocketed it. She blinked just once. Her eyes scanned my face like she was reading the wrong ending to a book she thought she'd written. "Nothing?" she asked. I shrugged. "You're not locked out." That was the moment her plans started to fall apart. She wore her favorite coat, the one she bought just because with our emergency fund. Her bag was zip-tight, but she kept checking it like she expected to forget something important. Her heels clicked across the floor as she moved toward the door slowly now, like she was waiting for me to stop her, to beg, to cry, to say anything that would validate the script she'd memorized. I didn't. She opened the door. I went back to rinsing dishes. She stood there for 4 full seconds. I counted, then finally walked out. It wasn't brave. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't some tragic act of courage. It was her worst miscalculation. And I made sure she felt every second of it. By the next morning, the bed was stripped, her closet emptied. Not by me. She took what she wanted and assumed I'd stew in the rest. What she didn't expect was that I wouldn't stay. She thought I'd haunt the kitchen, rereading her notes, cradling her old perfume like a ghost. She thought I'd call, apologize, ask what he had that I didn't. Instead, I left before the coffee even cooled. The car packed, the lease ended, her name scrubbed from every document like it had never belonged there. 3 days later, she texted, "Just checking if you're okay." I didn't answer. 2 hours after that, "Is this how you're going to be?" Still nothing. That night she called 6 times. Then came the email. I didn't read it, but I saw the subject line. "Maybe we rush things." And that was when I smiled. She thought leaving would break me. She thought she'd be the star of the sad little movie where the man falls apart and the woman learns she still mattered. But I made leaving so easy she regretted it before the elevator even hit the lobby. And that was only the beginning. The first real sign of who she'd become wasn't the affair. It was the receipt. I found it 2 days after she left, stuck in the bottom of the kitchen trash. A crumpled piece of thermal paper jammed between a greasy takeout bag and a half-sliced lemon that had browned overnight. Normally, I wouldn't have looked twice, but the logo at the top caught my eye. Some fusion restaurant across town I'd never heard of. The kind of place you reserve weeks ahead where dishes have one-word names and wine lists come on tablets. The date was last Friday. The total, $312.74. Dinner for 2. Split cocktails, expensive entree, and a shared dessert she told me she never had room for anymore. I read it 3 times, not because I was surprised, but because of the signature at the bottom. She'd signed with her maiden name. That was the moment my stomach finally caught up to what my heart already knew. She'd been practicing leaving for weeks, maybe months. Quiet rehearsals while I was out buying light bulbs or paying her speeding tickets. Fake headaches, mismatched timelines. Work dinners that somehow required perfume and a cab ride home at 1 a.m. She was rehearsing her new life while I was still fixing the leaky shower she'd been too tired to deal with. I wish I could say I felt angry or betrayed, but honestly, I felt insulted. Like I'd been dismissed by someone who thought I wouldn't notice she was writing the end of our story in pencil so she could erase the parts that made her look bad. That same afternoon I went to the restaurant, not for confrontation. I just needed to see it. Needed to know what kind of backdrop she chose for the act of becoming someone else. It was one of those glassy modern places that smelled like sea salt and lighting budgets. I didn't go in. I stood across the street in a bookstore cafe pretending to read, watching the front door like it might confess something if I stared hard enough. At 5:42 p.m., a man walked out. Mid-30s, laser, no tie, confident in that annoying way you only get after you've been told too many times that you're charming. I wouldn't have looked twice, except he pulled out his phone and leaned against the wall just long enough for me to see the name on his screen. Jolene Redart. She didn't even bother deleting me before replacing me. For some reason, I followed him. I know how that sounds pathetic, stalkerish. I wasn't planning anything. I just needed to know what kind of man she'd thrown away a decade for. What kind of gravity he had that I didn't. He walked 2 blocks, stopped outside a flower shop, picked up a bouquet he'd clearly ordered ahead of time, and headed into an apartment complex I'd never noticed before. That was it. No confrontation, no drama, just a walk. A stranger and a new reality where I didn't exist. I turned around and went home. Our home, the one she didn't want anymore. That night I took down all the frames, not out of spite, just necessity. The walls felt dishonest with our faces on them. Then around midnight, her voice returned. Not in person, on voicemail. "Hey, I don't know if you're ignoring me or what, but I just wanted to say I didn't mean for it to be this cold. I figured we'd talk through things. I guess I misread the situation. Anyway, hope you're okay." It was the first time I heard her sound unsure, not guilty, not regretful, just uncertain, like the ground beneath her was a little softer than she remembered. I didn't reply. Because here's the thing no one tells you about being left. There's power in silence, and not giving them the reaction they wrote into their exit scene. She thought I'd crumble. I was already rewriting the script. On Sunday, I told myself I wouldn't think about her. I made coffee, flipped on a podcast I couldn't focus on, then sat in the living room staring at a painting we bought at some arts fair in Vermont 2 summers ago. She said it reminded her of something she couldn't describe. I bought it anyway. Now it just looked like a smear of colors that meant nothing. I needed to get out of the house. Not for errands, not to see anyone. I just couldn't breathe in that space anymore. The smell of her dry shampoo still faint on the couch pillows. Her shoes still neatly aligned in the entryway like she might return for them casually, like she forgot nothing more than a scarf. So I drove. No destination in mind, just west. The freeway was wide open, the kind of gray morning that feels too quiet. At some point, I pulled off, ended up near a row of industrial buildings and storage units I'd never noticed before. And that's where the coincidence happened. Or maybe it wasn't coincidence at all. I recognized the logo on the sign. Same place she'd gotten those cardboard boxes from a week before she left. I remembered because I helped carry them up the stairs. She told me she was reorganizing the guest closet. Curious, I parked and walked inside the office. There was a bored-looking guy at the counter scrolling his phone. I asked if I could check if I had a unit here. Lied. Said I wasn't sure if my wife had rented one under our name. He asked for a name. I gave hers. He tapped at his keyboard, then said, "Yep, rented under Jolene C. Started about a month ago." A month. I felt my stomach shift. Then he said something that chilled me completely. "Want me to unlock it for you? She listed you as an emergency contact." I blinked, nodded, and just like that, he handed me a temporary code and pointed to Unit 114. The hallway smelled like dust and detergent. I found the door, entered the code, pulled up the heavy metal shutter. I don't know what I expected. Maybe some furniture, childhood mementos, But the first thing I saw was her wedding dress, sealed in a garment bag folded neatly in the corner like it meant nothing anymore. Right next to it, a suitcase, half full, labeled with a pink tag that read, "We Weekend Getaway." But it wasn't the dress or the suitcase that hit me the hardest. It was the binder. A plain white 3-ring binder sitting in the center of a plastic tub. I opened it. Inside, laminated pages, travel itineraries, credit card statements, a checklist titled "Moving Forward." In her handwriting, each bullet point made my chest tighten. Talk to Landon about lease options. File paperwork for new last name. Tell Curtis after I'm out. Close joint accounts. Contact HR. Name change. The last line was underlined twice. Do not back down if he cries. I sat down on the cold cement floor and stared at that sentence like it was a punch to the jaw I never saw coming. She had planned for my reaction like I was an obstacle, like I was a moment to endure. I didn't cry. Not there. Not in that unit surrounded by all the pieces of a life I no longer belonged to. But something in me broke. Not like glass, but like a hinge snapping, silent, irreparable. I stood up, took one last look at the binder, closed it, locked the unit behind me, returned the code card to the front desk. "Everything all right?" the guy asked, not looking up. "Yeah," I said, just throwing out what's already gone, and I walked out. I didn't go home. I didn't go anywhere familiar. I drove for 2 hours and checked into a roadside motel, left my phone in the car and sat on a bed that smelled like bleach and old TV dinners because for the first time in years, I had no plan, no script, no version of the future that made any sense. But she did, and she thought I'd be broken by it. That night, I didn't sleep. But I didn't cry either because the one thing she didn't plan for was what I'd become when I stopped playing the part she gave me. I didn't return home for 3 days, didn't check emails, didn't respond to her voicemail, the second one that came in around 2 a.m. Monday morning. I let everything go quiet. That motel room with its flickering lamp and buzzing AC unit became the vacuum I needed to stand still in. No reminders, no memories. Just the hum of silence and cheap upholstery. On the third morning, I finally drove back. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe that the apartment would feel colder, more hollow, but it didn't. It just felt unfamiliar, like someone else's home with my furniture still in it. I stood in the doorway for a full minute before walking in, and that's when I saw it. A white envelope propped up right on the counter where her key had been days earlier. No name, just "Read me." I knew that handwriting slanted, always too sharp on the R's. Inside, 2 things, a note and a photo. The note read, "I thought space would make things easier. Maybe I was wrong. Please don't shut the door completely. Not yet." Joe, that was all. No explanation, no apology. The photo, a Polaroid. Her and him, Landon, sitting on a rooftop somewhere. Mid-laugh, 2 glasses of red wine on a tiny table between them. She was leaning into him like the world outside that frame didn't exist. But there was something odd about it. Something small. In the corner of the table, nearly out of frame, I saw the edge of a third glass. It wasn't empty. I flipped the photo over, written in faint black ink on the back. Tuesday night, 10 p.m. That was the night she told me she was at her friend's house helping with a kid emergency. I sat down, tried to breathe. She didn't just lie. She brought someone else into it, someone I didn't know. And based on the look of that third glass, someone who wasn't supposed to be captured in that photo. Someone who might have seen something. That's when it shifted. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. This was about discovery. And maybe, just maybe, unraveling more than she ever meant me to see. I made a copy of the photo, put the original back in the envelope, and slid it where she left it. Then I waited. 2 days later, on a dull Thursday afternoon, the buzzer rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I checked the camera feed at the front entrance, I felt a chill go through me. It wasn't Jolene. It was Landon, holding a manila folder. I buzzed him in, then sat calmly at the kitchen counter as he knocked. I opened the door without a word. He looked nervous, worn down, not the smug Winday version from the Polaroid. "Hey, I didn't think you'd actually," he started, but I cut him off with a simple gesture toward the chair across from me. He sat. Silence. Then he slid the folder across the counter. "I think she lied to both of us," he said. Inside the folder were emails, printouts of receipts, and a message string between her and someone named Thomas. I didn't recognize the name, but I recognized the tone. It was flirtatious, intimate time between her messages to Landon. "She told me I was the only one," Landon said, voice flat. "Said she was leaving you because she found clarity with me." I stared at the folder, then at him. "You're not the first man she made a fool of," I said. "You're just the first one to come here and admit it." He blinked, then leaned back, rubbing his face. "I don't know what she wants anymore. Honestly, I don't even think she knows." I nodded. "She wants a version of herself that doesn't exist," I said, "and she'll burn every life she touches trying to find it." We sat in silence. Then he stood. "I won't bother you again. I just thought you should see that. I thought I was rescuing her from you. I didn't realize I was the next disposable chapter." As he walked out, I didn't stop him, didn't thank him, didn't close the door right away. I just stood there watching him vanish down the hall, knowing the story she was writing had already started to collapse. Not because I fought back, not because I exposed her, but because the life she ran toward wasn't real either. And that photo? That was her mistake. The one piece of evidence she never meant to leave behind. And now I had it. I didn't hear from Jolene again for almost a week after Landon left my door. No texts, no calls, no new envelopes. And for a moment I thought maybe she'd finally done it. Disappeared into whatever new chapter she drafted for herself, surrounded by rooftop cocktails and filtered honesty. But people like her don't vanish. They echo. They leave pieces of themselves behind in the places they once pretended to care about. That Thursday, the echo arrived in the form of a manila envelope shoved into my mailbox. No postage, no return address, just the initials TL scribbled in the top corner. Thomas, I hadn't forgotten. Inside were 10 printed photographs, not digital prints. Developed, glossy, as if taken with film. As if whoever sent them wanted them to be real in a way digital couldn't duplicate. And they were real too. In the photos, Jolene in a hotel lobby, sitting at a bar, walking through a corridor. But she wasn't with Landon, or even alone. She was with someone else entirely. A man at least 15 years older, balding with a cane tucked beside his chair. In 2 of the photos, she was kissing him. Not romantically, not on the lips, but on the cheek, soft, familiar, like someone comforting a friend. But the last photo hit differently. It was her in the man's hotel suite standing by the window. Her hands were up, open, and the look on her face, I'd never seen it before. Not once in 12 years of marriage. She looked afraid, not startled, not embarrassed. Afraid. The handwriting on the back of the final photo simply read, "She owes people more than she admits." That night, I called the only person who might know who TL was. Natalie, Jolene's former friend, someone she hadn't spoken to in almost 2 years after some mysterious falling out that Jolene had brushed off as irreconcilable differences. I hadn't heard that phrase outside of divorce papers until she said it about her best friend. I called Natalie under the guise of checking in. She didn't buy it. "You're calling about her, aren't you?" she said flatly. "I got something in the mail." I told her photos from someone named Teal. "You know him." Silence, then a sigh. I warned her. Natalie said when she started meeting with those people from the old firm. I told her she was poking ghosts. "Which firm?" "Kepler Financial. The hedge fund she interned at in college, you remember? She said she left early because the culture was toxic. That wasn't the whole story." I swallowed. "What was?" "She had an affair with the VP while he was under federal review. He got cleared, but the fallout burned a lot of people. She buried it, married you, started clean, but now she's been contacting people again. I think she wants something." "What kind of something?" "She wants to rewrite history." That night, I sat in my kitchen staring at those photographs, wondering if I ever really knew the woman I married, or if I only knew the version of her she carefully built on top of someone else's wreckage. And if this man in the photo, this Thomas, was from the ruins, why was he sending me messages? Why now? I pulled out the original Polaroid, the one with Landon, the rooftop, the third glass. I looked closer this time, zoomed in with my phone. It was the same man, same profile, same Kane. Only this time seated alone at her nearby table. She hadn't seen him, but he'd seen everything. And now he was watching me too. It was Saturday evening when I heard the knock. Not the buzzer, not a call ahead. Just 3 slow knocks at the door, like someone didn't want to be heard, but needed to be answered. I almost didn't move. I've been sitting in the den, blinds drawn, going over the photos again. I compared the timestamps, angles, even measured shadow length on the hotel once, trying to make sense of what Thomas wanted. Why now? Why me? My hands were stained with highlighter and cold coffee, but something about those knocks dragged me to the door like a tide. And when I opened it, there she was, Jolene. Hair longer than when she left, a tan she didn't have when she lived here, and eyes that weren't tearful but cautious. The look of someone who wasn't sure which version of me she was about to meet. She was holding her phone in one hand, a duffel bag in the other, and nothing else. She didn't say hello. The first words out of her mouth were, "Did you get something in the mail?" Not a greeting, not an apology, just that. I let the silence grow thick before I answered. "Yes," I said. "Several things." Her face tightened. She stepped in without waiting for an invitation, dropped her bag by the couch, and stood in the center of the room like she was waiting for a spotlight. "He's not supposed to be talking to anyone," she said. I didn't ask who she meant. "Thomas." I offered anyway. She flinched, not visibly, but enough for me to feel it. "He's sick," she said. "Bitter. He likes to make people paranoid. Looks like you gave him plenty to work with." She exhaled sharply, started pacing. "Okay," she said. "You want the truth? Fine. I went to him because I needed leverage. I was trying to get access to a fund my name was technically still connected to, the one from Kepler." "You were trying to steal money." "No," she snapped. "I was trying to get what I deserved by rekindling something with a man you ghosted 15 years ago. He owed me," she said flatly. "After what he did, after how he threw me under the bus during that audit, he owed me." I stared at her, watching this version of her unravel like a pulled thread. She wasn't the same woman who left me with a goodbye note and a fake smile. This version was cornered, hollowed, and the worst part, I think she'd convinced herself she was still in control.
"What happened that night?" I asked, motioning to the Polaroid at the rooftop with Landon, with Thomas watching. Her voice dropped. "You saw him there?" "Of course I did. He made sure I would." She swallowed, sat down slowly on the edge of the couch. "I didn't know he'd followed me," she said. "He waited until Landon went to the bathroom. Then he came over, sat across from me like it was nothing, said he knew everything, that he'd been watching for weeks. Said I looked smaller than I used to, like someone who got lost, trying to pretend she wasn't." "And what did you say?" She looked at me then, really looked for the first time in what felt like a lifetime. I told him he was right. The silence between us was a canyon. Then she said the line I'll never forget. "He told me you were going to find out anyway, that you'd already started, and that when you did, you'd vanish because that's what you do. You disappear. You don't fight. You don't scream. You just make people feel like they never mattered." I didn't respond. She stared down at her hands. "I didn't come back to fix things," she admitted. "I came back because I'm scared. He's not just bitter, Curtis. He's obsessive. And if he's sending you messages, then he's planning something." I stood up slowly. "You think I'm afraid of a man you manipulated for personal gain? You think after everything you did to him, to Landon, to me, I'd play the protector again?" "No," she said. "I think you're the only one he might actually listen to." And that was it. "No, I miss you. No, I made a mistake. Just a broken woman trying to leverage the one man who didn't scream when she betrayed him." I walked to the door and held it open. "You can leave your bag here tonight," I said. "The spare bedroom's clean." She blinked. "But in the morning," I added, "you're going to tell me everything. Every name, every lie, every file you touched. And then what?" "Then I decide if I'm helping you," I said, "or helping him." And for the first time in all of this, she looked afraid for the right reason. Jolene didn't sleep that night. I could hear her moving in the guest room, the bed creaking as she turned over, got up, sat down again. Sometimes she paced. Once I heard her quietly crying, muffling herself with one of the old pillows I hadn't thrown out yet. The same one she picked out from the home goods store we used to shop at on weekends, when everything still felt like it had a future. I didn't go to her. She'd forfeited comfort the moment she walked out of this life with her shoulders squared like she was heading towards something better. If she wanted sanctuary now, she'd have to earn it the hard way by bleeding the truth. By morning, she looked like a different person. Hair pulled back, face pale, eyes red but dry. She sat at the kitchen table in silence until I finally joined her. No coffee, no small talk, no hope in her posture. "All right," I said, pulling out a chair. "Start at the beginning." She nodded, took a breath, and then it all came pouring out. Back in college, she'd landed the internship at Kepler Financial after lying about her GPA and forging a recommendation letter. No one ever caught it. She was smart, not genius level, but clever enough to mimic one. That internship turned into a part-time gig, which evolved into a role assisting Thomas Levinson, a mid-level executive with too much access and a drinking problem. She was 22. He was 48. At first, it was harmless. He called her sharp, fast, dangerous in the best way. She felt noticed, powerful. When he took her to dinners under the guise of business, she went along. And when he kissed her in a hotel elevator one night, she didn't stop it. She wanted a matter. But Thomas was being watched quietly internally. When the firm was flagged for insider trading suspicions, everything he'd touched, including her, got swept up in a private audit. HR told her she'd be protected if she cooperated. So, she flipped, turned over everything,
emails, call logs, even her private calendar. She never saw him again after that. No charges were filed, but Thomas's reputation was obliterated. His career ended in whispers, not headlines. And she? She walked away clean, rebuilt, reinvented. Met me. I sat there listening as she confessed not just what she'd done, but what she'd buried. The past few months, I started getting anonymous messages, she said. Snippets of old conversations, screenshots of documents I forgot existed, and then photos from outside our building, our old bedroom window. My heart dropped. He didn't tell me. I thought I could manage it, that he was just blowing off steam. But then he sent me a voice note. Said he'd been following me, watching everything. Said he'd be patient. Said you didn't deserve any of this, but that I'd left him no choice. I leaned back, stunned. He threatened to come here. Number. Worse, she whispered. He said he'd make you question your entire reality. That by the time he was done, you wouldn't be able to tell if I ever loved you at all. I didn't speak because I already had. That doubt, that corrosive thought had been growing in me for months, years maybe. And now I knew it had been planted, watered, and nurtured from the outside. You thought you could control him, I said. I thought he still needed something from me, that I could buy time. So you ran back to him. She shook her head. No, I didn't run back. I ran towards something else. Landon was never the plan. He was a smoke screen, a distraction for both of us. My stomach turned. You used another man to shield yourself? She nodded. He was just easy. He believed every word. And me? I asked. What was I? There was a long pause. You were supposed to be the safe place, she said. But I didn't realize how much I burned until it was already ash. I stood up. I needed space air. But before I could leave the room, my phone burst. No caller ID. I answered instinctively. Curtis, a man's voice said. Calm, polished, worn down like sandpaper. I see she's told you. It was him. Thomas. She's panicking now, isn't she? He said. She thinks I'm here to ruin her, but I'm not. I'm just making sure no one forgets what she did. I didn't say a word. I left something for you, he continued. At the storage unit, Unit 114, bottom shelf, taped to the underside. Then he hung up. I turned to Jolene, who had gone ghost white. What did you leave in that unit? I asked. She shook her head, terrified.
I don't know,
she whispered. I haven't been there since before Miami. And that was all I needed to hear. I grabbed my keys because whatever Thomas had left there, it wasn't for her. It was for me. And I was finally ready to see what this war was really about. I hadn't been back to the storage facility since the day I found her wedding dress folded like a lie. Returning now felt like circling back to the beginning of something I didn't sign up for, but had no choice but to finish. The guy at the front desk barely looked up. I punched in the code. The hallway buzzed with fluorescent lights that never blinked. Unit 114 felt colder this time, like the room had memorized everything we left behind. I unlocked the latch, pulled up the door. The unit was untouched. I crouched down at the shelf Thomas had mentioned and reached under. My fingers hit duct tape, pulled it loose. A small black thumb drive dropped into my hand. That was it. No note, no threats, just silence. I drove home in complete stillness. Jolene didn't speak when I walked in. She watched me plug the drive into my laptop like someone bracing for impact. It took a minute to load. Inside a folder labeled only with the date, the exact day she left. Inside that, 3 audio files, 1 short video, and a scan letter. I opened a letter first. It wasn't from Thomas.
It was from Jolene, not addressed to me, but to herself, written in a format she used to call mirror pages. Notes she used to write to reflect honestly, with no performance. She used to share them with me during our first years together, back when we still believed in sharing everything. The letter was dated 2 nights before she left. In it, she confessed everything, not just the affair, or Thomas, or the manipulation, but something deeper, a self-loathing that had rotted through her long before I ever met her. She talked about not knowing how to be loved when she wasn't earning it, about how peace made her anxious, about how I was the first person who didn't want anything from her but presence, and how that scared her more than any punishment. She ended the letter with one line I'll never forget. "Curtis, if you're reading this, it means I lost you. And maybe for the first time, I finally understand what I had." I closed the file and sat in silence. I didn't need to listen to the recordings. I didn't need to watch the video because somehow that note written for no one, meant for no audience, gave me something none of her apologies ever did. Honesty. I turned to her. She wasn't crying. She was still. "You wrote it," I said quietly. She nodded. "I was scared," she whispered, "of myself, of being known." I stood, looked out the window. Morning was creeping in, pale light hitting the walls in the softest way. "I'm not going to hate you forever," I said, "but I can't build anything new on top of this. Not even peace, not even forgiveness." She nodded again. No protest, no bargaining. And then she did something I didn't expect. She smiled. Small, sad, honest. "Then this is goodbye," she said. She picked up her bag, walked to the door, paused. "Thank you," she said, "for never becoming the villain, even when I deserved one." And then she was gone. This time, not like a storm, but like a quiet breeze exiting a house that no longer needed its windows closed. 3 months later, I moved. A small town 2 hours north. New job, new neighbors. No headlines, no drama. Just space. I take long walks every evening. I stop checking my phone for her name. Sometimes I still think about the wedding dress in that storage unit. Whether she ever came back for it, whether she ever will. But now I don't need the answer, because I didn't just let her leave. I let myself go too. And for once, I'm not waiting for the next goodbye. I'm already living them.